Hi, I'm Azza. I am a community builder and activist based in Northern Virginia, or the colony of Virginia as I like to call it, and I'm also a Mad Pride activist.
I'm Valerie Novack. I am a disability policy researcher. So we both work together, so we were asked to do this video together, and we're talking a little bit about Black History Month and disability rights. And so both Azza and I work and live within the disability community space, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. And I think for both of us, our race, our culture very much has had an impact on how we define ourselves to the greater world. So of course, I mean, I'm a Black and Hispanic woman, but I'm also many things. I'm queer, I'm married, I'm a student, and all of those in various ways I think have become very important parts of my identity, in addition to identifying as disabled.
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar for me too. It's a little bit weird doing the thing where I feel like I have to list all my identities because they're not compartmentalized for me in that way, but a lot of my experiences and kind of my understanding of what disability justice means is shaped heavily by the fact that I am the child of Sudanese immigrants, the fact that I do and have done a lot of work because I'm Muslim on issues related to anti-Muslim oppression and imperialism, the fact that I am a disabled, mad person who's been forcibly institutionalized multiple times, all of those kind of in tandem have shaped my understanding of what a justice-based approach is. And I think, honestly, as someone who is Black and always seen as Black first before any of my other identities are ever accounted for, disability justice provided a space and a framework and a movement and a praxis that I'd not seen before, where disability wasn't simply a thing for and by white people, and a movement that only made space for white people and only made space for some disabilities at the expense of others. And so yeah, I think that was my entry point into the work.
Can you give an example of the way that some of the work you're doing fits into the disability justice movement?
I can. So I am, as I've mentioned, I do a lot of work in Virginia, where I'm from and where I live, and part of the work that we do focuses on how criminalization and abolition often focuses on kind of jails and prisons, understandably so, and police, and we've kind of tried to shift the way that people talk about it to also recognize the ways in which carceral logics and carceral systems also pervade other spaces, right? So schools are very carceral. The way in which our work environments can be very carceral. The way in which Black people in particular experience a very unique nexus of repressions when it comes to Satanism, ableism, and anti-Blackness. And so I think a lot of our political education work in particular has been focusing on how abolition means dismantling the carceral state in all of the different spaces that it appears, in addition to, of course, liberating our siblings who are disappeared into the jails and prisons and ICE detention camps and psychiatric institutions and other institutions throughout this country.
That's a lot.
Yeah, like a super small thing that I'm gonna do in like a weekend. We're not exhausted at all.
So that's really important to support that work. Yeah, I think that it's very similar. While I work in different spaces, I think we both do work when I'm looking at disability policy at systems that assume white as the basis. And so when I'm reviewing policy, whether that's in transportation or housing or healthcare, the assumption of the way that people are living, the way particularly disabled people are living that fit into that policy work, is a white culture, a power, the power minority culture. And I think what drew me to disability justice and doing the work that I do in the way that I do it is not seeing myself when I was doing this work for others, and looking at some of the legislative text or bill suggestions and realizing that nobody who wrote that had any idea how this might affect people on the ground that didn't fit into a specific demographic, which means that we could be putting out what we think are improvements and reclaiming of rights that are really only affecting certain people. And I think that's very, very true when we talk about incarcerated populations as well, because we have incarcerated people, and that really is across culture, but we also know who it disproportionately affects, that a lot of times we completely cut them out of any conversations unless we're talking about conversations for prison reform or something like that. So what would your vision be for future generations that come across the work you're doing now?
So with this, I want to uplift someone who was very generous in sharing their wisdom with me last year, actually, now. But I had the opportunity to meet with some folks who organize with a group out on the West Coast. It's called the Compadres Network, and you should support the incredible abolitionist work that they do as well. And I learned from them that the way in which we can ethically do this work is by considering the impact of every decision we make, every policy that we weigh in on, every movement space that we create and build, every community that we're trying to uplift. How are our decisions going to impact people who come 7 generations after us, right? What is the legacy that we're going to leave them with, but also what are the material things that they're going to have access to? What are the ways in which the environment that is shifting for their benefit, so that they can also build something that is emancipatory and radical and beautiful. And so I don't know that I have a specific thing. I feel like it's a little bit audacious to be like, this is what I taught you and all my wisdom. I don't think it's something quite like that. I think it's more that it is my hope and my intention to move through the world in a way that honors the generations that will come after me, and also honors the ancestors and generations that preceded me.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I do a lot of emergency preparedness work, and so for this, when I think about this question, there's some really concrete, really intentional and scary outcomes when I think about future generations because of climate change. But I also think that, so I guess part of what would mean I've been somewhat successful along with so many other people is that there are future generations, and that we're still here. But I think, a lot of the stuff that I do is behind the scenes, and I'm fine with that. I don't necessarily need my name to be recognized, but I think that if the generations after me, if the people that are doing this work after me show up to a meeting at a Congress office and they're not the only Black person or the only Mexican person or the only woman or the only disabled person in that room, that maybe I had a little bit of something to do with that, because that's really the reason that I have the work I do, is because so often that's not happening. And so when I just hope that the future generations, whether it's school or work or doing policy work like I do, that when they walk into a room, they're no longer the only of whatever identity markers it is that they hold, but that they're surrounded by both people who are like them and people who are nothing like them, so that we can make sure the stuff that we're doing is for everybody. Then the last question is, if you could send a message of appreciation to your ancestors, what would it be? We talked a lot about this question.
We did. And I still haven't landed on what specifically I would say. And I think part of it is because of the immense gratitude that I have that I don't feel can be expressed in a cute little packaged soundbite. But also because when I have the opportunity to reconnect with the ancestors, I want to listen. I want to listen and affirm their struggle. And it is my hope, my sincere hope, that everything that I do will be done in a way that honors them, that would make them proud, that continues their legacies of resistance. And so I uplift their names, and I uplift their struggle, and I will continue dreaming freedom dreams and building towards a world where we don't have imperial borders, and we don't have prisons and cages that we disappear people into, and that we affirm that all body minds have inherent value outside of these capitalistic notions of productivity, and where we can be joyous and have pleasure and not worry about it as either something that we have to do as a subversive thing, but just something that is.
I would just say ditto that.
+1 on that.
I'll just tell my ancestors that that was a joint statement.
And honestly,
I think that works a little bit. Yeah.
This is why we're filming it together too, though, because we're building towards the same dream, and we sometimes use different tactics and bring to this work different experiences, but it's with the same vision for collective liberation. So
we'll get there.
Yeah. Happy Black History Month.
Happy Black History Month.
Peace to all the ancestors. Power to the people.
#disability rights in Black.